Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to the Weekend Crusaders. My name's Sean Wasserkrug, and with me, as always, is Brian Michaels. We have some movies to talk about today. Try to stay awake, which is basically was the plot line to this week's episode for Brian and I, because there were two movies that we were fighting to stay awake through. Weren't we, Brian?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some good ones in here too, but the two of them were quite a challenge. Of course, they would be the two longest ones, I think, of the list too. So
yes, they were. They were definitely the two longest ones on the list. We're going to go ahead and get one of them out of the way first. We're going to go ahead and go with the stinker film this time around to start. What's sad about this whole thing is that this stinker film is the highest finished box office movie so far on the show, which also makes Brian and I incredibly sad. This is no, it's not even a remake. It's actually a sequel. How we do the film, like, this is a sequel, isn't it? It is the 2010 Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland. God. Wide release on March 5th, 2010. Had a budget of $200 million. Had a weekend opening, my God, of $116.1 million. It was number one its opening weekend. And for also the first time this week, we had one that finished number one. It actually spent more than 1 week at number one. It had 3 weeks at the number one spot and finished with a box office of $1.25 billion with a B, had $334.19 million domestic and $691.27 million international. Before we get too far into it, I've never been a fan of Alice in Wonderland. I was never a fan of the cartoon. I didn't hate the cartoon. It was just kind of one of those Disney movies. I was just like, it's Alice in Wonderland. It's whatever. I like Tim Burton. I mean, heck, our first show, I picked a Tim Burton film with Big Fish to talk about. Him and Johnny Depp, they used to make good movies together. They don't anymore. And I remember literally the first time I saw the trailer for this movie, I was like, this is a nightmare-inducing film. Like, isn't this supposed to be a kid's film? And the whole time, like, Johnny Depp looks like
just Mad Hatter alone. Yeah,
he looks like a almost like a steampunk version of Pennywise the Clown. And can we talk about the character?
That or the reanimated corpse of Carrot Top? One of the two.
That's actually a very good one too. We could probably go all day just finding little digs of but I mean, you have the Red Queen, who I guess looks like the Ken Griffey version of on steroids on The Simpsons, where he's got the big ass head and he can't keep it upright. I mean, why they made her head so big? I guess that gets explained in the sequel why her head's so big. But first off, just the way it looks in this, and then you have a crackhead rabbit that literally looks like he does a lot of bad things for a carrot. He basically looks like Tyrone Biggums from Chappelle's Show. This hair looks like he's had some rough days. It's bad. This movie is just ugly. It is ugly to look at. It's horrifying to look at as well. And the whole time we were watching it, Brian, I was like, how are kids not having nightmares watching this movie? Brian, take it away. What are your thoughts on Alice in Wonderland?
Well, my first thought was that, like, you even in the intro were kind of not sure how to classify this, because is it a remake? Is it a sequel? Is it what? Because the problem is it's both. It's like they took stuff from the Alice in Wonderland, and then through the Looking Glass, the follow-up book, and it basically kind of put events from both movies both books into one movie, which of course then creates a problem when they tried to make another movie. They had already used up half the stuff for that. So already got a problem with an identity crisis with it. Like you, I was never a big fan of the Disney version. I thought it was just kind of, I remembered scenes from it, but I actually went back and watched it a couple of years ago, and it's not good. It really isn't. But yeah, it's an ugly movie to look at. It's so, especially for a kids movie, it's dark and it's murky and it's nightmare inducing. But actually, what I was thinking of as a parent, I was thinking the whole time watching this movie, I'm like, I can just feel kids squirming in their seats this entire movie just out of sheer boredom. That was my biggest problem with the movie, is how completely boring it was. It was what I think the 40-minute mark before I said something actually interesting happened.
Not even. Well, yeah, you said 40, like 39 minutes in, you're like, it just finally did something interesting. But
and that was just brief moment.
The first 20 minutes, oh my god, you and I were just like,
yeah, watching the rejected Weasley twin proposing to her. Yeah.
Yes, the rejected. I said no. I didn't say it. You said that. I said no. This is the kid that the Weasleys bully.
yeah, that's what it was.
It's like Ron would bully this twerp, and it's just like it's 20 minutes of like what Downton Abbey-esque kind of film, and it's like boring. Mia Wasikowska. She is just duller than a piece of wood. Her Alice is...
How you cast her as the lead in a $2 billion movie or whatever.
Her performance is so wooden and just so soft-spoken. And the whole time, this is just a dream. This is just a dream.
At the end of the movie, she's still like, oh, I forgot, it's just a dream. It's like, get over it. We've established it's not a dream.
At some point, I was waiting for Johnny Depp to just slap her and say, bitch, wake up. This is not a dream. Shit's going real. There's a fucking dragon over there. Wake up! But no, she's like, it's a dream. And at one point, I think he literally asked her, what makes you still think this is a dream? And then like 10 minutes later, she still says, this is a dream. And I'm just like, I don't know how much more like this. Like she actually got hurt in the dream. In the dream, she gets hurt. And it's like, usually if you get hurt in a dream, you probably wake up for the most part. But it's the performances. Johnny Depp goes in and out of an Irish accent in this film. I guess apparently if he talks about the wagon, if he talks about the dragon in
it's actually the Jabberwocky.
Well, yeah, every time the dragon in this film, which first off, Alice in Wonderland having a dragon, which you said that's from the sequel book.
That's one of the things they stole from the second book.
But apparently anytime he has to talk about this dragon, he has to go Irish, the Jabberwocky. The Jabberwocky. And it's like, why is his voice change all of a sudden? He gets super dark and scary and deep whenever he talks about this dragon. He goes full on Irish. And then the whole rest of the film, he's just doing flaky Johnny Depp.
It was kind of a combination between his Willy Wonka and like his Ed Wood. It was a weird combination
unless he starts talking about the Jabberwocky, and then he goes like scary Irish like brogue voice.
Yeah.
And his eyes change color, and it's just like, why? Now, granted, at the end of this movie, and Brian's like, I don't care. I was like, I don't want to watch the sequel, but I will wiki read the sequel. And I did read that in the sequel, he thinks the dragon killed his family. So that maybe explains why he talks like that. I don't know why that he changes a whole nationality of language tone, but that's why he's so deep and dark about the dragon. But once again, none of that stuff's in the first film, so it's just weird that it happens. Then you've got Crispin Glover's character. Oh my god, you didn't have as big of an issue with I did. Crispin Glover literally looks like his head is just put on Jack Skellington's body. Yeah. He moves unnatural the entire time, which nothing would annoy me more than you going, Crispin Glover, we have a position for you. We want you to be this badass, like, looking knight guy, but we're only going to use your head.
They used his torso in close-ups when you didn't have to see that he was supposed to be elongated and tall.
He's just like this like slender man.
Yeah, like slender man, exactly. That's what it was.
Clearly, you're like the first time you saw him, I'm like, that's not his body. And you're like, what? I go, look at him walk. There's no way Crispin Glover that's not his body right now. And I feel so bad that Alan Rickman and wasn't Christopher Lee the Jabberwocky?
Christopher Lee?
Yeah, I'm so sad that both of them got thrown into this film. And then you had the ugly Tweedledum and Tweedledee and Tweedledum. They're
yeah. She even refers to them as the ugly boys.
Yeah,
no, she's my little fat boys.
Yeah, my little ugly fat boys. Yeah. And I'm just like, that's nice. That's nice.
And they just look stupid. And everything in this movie is like, obviously it's supposed to be kind of a surreal world, but everything's just exaggerated, whether it be size of the Red Queen's head for no reason is like a bobblehead.
Like I said, it gets explained in the sequel.
Yeah, but it's just in here, and then every character, whether it be the ugly little fat boys, whoever it is, everything's just ugly to look at. And it was just I didn't like the way it looked. I didn't like the way the whole film looked because my other problem with it is part of the explanation, and this is absolutely true, for this making so much money is because this is right at the beginning of the 3D craze. Avatar came out in the end of December 2009. This was what, February, March of 2010.
Yeah.
And it was one of the first like big like feature film blockbusters in 3D. So a lot of people going to see this was mainly out of curiosity for the theatrical experience, especially that's why it made two-thirds of its money, you know, in foreign markets. But because there's nothing else to explain why it made so much money. But I think the problem with 3D is that when you're watching it not in 3D, it's one of those movies where things for no reason are coming at the screen. It's just like, ugh.
There's nothing likable about this movie at all. And I told you, I was like, you know this movie's bad when the one character that you give a shit about the most is the fucking bloodhound dog. Why? Because they gave more character to him saying 2 lines.
Right, he was concerned about his family, and it's like...
He's just like, I'm doing this for my pups and my wife. And you're like, well, crap, I don't want the dog to die because he's trying to get back his puppies and his wife. And when you actually see the puppy and wife, you're like, aw. And it's like, that's a side character on a side character. You have Johnny Depp. You have Mia Wasikowska, or however you say her name, as Alice.
Yeah.
You got Anne Hathaway. Don't give a shit about Anne Hathaway.
Kind of wasted. And here's one of my problems is Anne Hathaway is the White Queen, you know, but the problem is the Red Queen has every legal and proper right to her throne, and here's the White Queen trying to overthrow her. It's like, well, the Red Queen has it by pure right. She didn't like steal the throne.
Okay, hold on. In the sequel, they explain it. And
you shouldn't have a movie where half your stuff's explained in the sequel.
I shouldn't have to explain this by reading the wiki. Apparently, in the sequel, they flash back because in the sequel, it's all time travel bullshit. But apparently in the sequel, while they were going to put the throne or the crown on the Red Witch, something happens and like the White Queen breaks something that's important to her, and she throws a hissy fit like a child. And because of that, the father gives the throne to the youngest, the White Queen. Thus, what makes the Red Queen evil. Once again, I hate that I had to read about this to give context to the first film, but that's how bad this movie is. The characters are not memorable. Like I said, the most memorable character was the fucking dog.
Literally 10 minutes ago, coming to the show, I was telling Sean, like, I'm trying to remember what happened in this movie because it is so forgettable.
Like, honestly, as we're going, things are finally starting to come back.
Yeah, finally starting to come back in as you talk about it.
But yeah, like I said, the first 20 minutes is, I don't know how any kid in the theater stayed still.
I luckily did not take my kids to go see this one. I think they were smartly not interested in it. But if they were, I guarantee the whole movie they would squirming, asking, you know, when's the action going to come back, or when's it going to get good? They'll be asking to leave probably.
There was not even any action in the first 20 minutes. The first 20 minutes is push, T, blah 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 blah. I'm rich, you're rich, we're poor.
But even once the action starts, it's bland and boring. Everything about this movie.
Up until the dragon or the Jabberwocky scene, it's a beat for beat almost the exact same as the original film, except that Mad Hatter's getting way more effing lines than he ever got before because it's Johnny Depp. But it's just, oh god, this movie is dull. It's we almost made it through this without bringing up the fucking dance. Oh,
well, you mean we got to see him futterwhacking vigorously?
Futterwhacking furiously. How can you say that with a straight face?
It's one of those, and plus it's one of those things. First of all, futterwhacking. I'm assuming that was the word in the book. But still, the fact they said it and they said, "Oh, he's going to futterwhacking vigorously," it's like clearly they're going for the sexual innuendo in this Disney movie.
That's the thing, is that Johnny Depp says it so sexually. He's like, "When the day comes when we slay the Red Queen, I will futterwhack intensely or feverishly," or something's like. And Brian, I'm vigorously. And Brian are like, "How are we not supposed to take that sexually?" And the whole time they're like, "He's gonna futterwhack it," and we're like, "Please don't." And then he finally does it, and we both just went, and then the one part you said, Brian, was like, "At least it wasn't that long." And then Alice does it in the real world, and we
my god, for no reason at all. Why she would break into the dance there?
There's no context to it. No one outside of Alice.
She's literally done with turning down the proposal and whatever. She's walking away and goes, "Oh, one more thing," and she dances for no reason. Which
to anyone else just makes her look fucking crazy. I think I've had enough F-bombs just in this one movie alone. But I hate this movie. I hate it. I hate it. I hate this film. Not because it's necessarily it is a bad film, but because it's not even 2 hours. Shockingly, it feels like 2.5 hours, but it's like an hour, 45?
Hour 48.
Hour 48. It feels like 2.5 hours. It goes at a snail's pace. The action, actually, there's not really any action. There's like a fight scene for like.
There's like 2 scenes of brief action. It's not. Yeah. It's mostly just wandering around.
The acting's horrid, and it made 1.25 billion. Are you kidding me? Billion.
Yeah.
Shame on all of you for giving this movie that much money. Shame on all of you. Luckily, we were about to put some shame on some people on our Letterboxd friends, but luckily no one likes this movie. So y'all are in the clear. But that's why it's a stinker. And it's almost one of those things where it's like, we actively hate this film. Yes, we hate 50 Shades of Black. We hate Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. We hate, what the hell was last week's movie that we hated so much?
I don't even remember.
I don't even remember. We hated it so badly.
Oh, it's Street Fighter.
Legend of Chun-Li. Those ones, at least for the most part, kept our attention.
And they were at least fun to watch bad movies for the most part.
This was not fun.
This is just dreadfully boring.
Like, that's the one thing is, like, Brian and I, we both said that at least when we watch the stinkers, yes, they're bad movies, but we have funny moments where we can joke and pick at it and laugh at the movie. There was no laughing at this movie. There was no joy about this movie. It was basically Brian and I torturously trying to stay awake and just make it to the end. Every 10, 15 minutes, we were moving our cursor to see how much time was left in this film. And we both just kept going countdowns, like 15 minutes left, 20 minutes left, 5 more minutes, man. And then the photo whacking started, and then at that point, we forgot about the time. But so I guess
Sean, this usual thing where he starts out like this and is slowly moving out of the picture like this.
Yeah, Brian started leaning back in his chair, and I was just like, "Don't you dare fall asleep! I gotta stay awake. You gotta stay awake." Sadly, Alice in Wonderland is on streaming. Obviously, it's a Disney film, so it's on Disney Plus. If you guys have not seen this film, do not see this film. If you guys want to watch Alice in Wonderland, go watch the far, 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 far superior cartoon. But let's face it, even the cartoon's not great.
Yeah.
But in comparison to this, it's far better. If you want to see a Tim Burton and Johnny Depp film, go watch Sweeney Todd or Edward Scissorhands, or name me 2 other Johnny Depp movies that are better than this, Brian, that I didn't just name.
With Tim Burton?
Yes, and Johnny Depp.
You put me on the spot. What else has he done?
Come on, Brian. Come on.
I just closed my Johnny Depp tab. I don't know.
No cheat. Anyway, go see those 2 because they're way better. Watch it when Johnny Depp and Tim Burton could put good movies together. Okay. Tim Burton did Ed Wood?
Yeah.
I didn't know. I was thinking Ed Wood. I was like, I don't think he did that one. Okay, so Ed Wood. That's actually a really good one. So yes, moving on to the next one because we spent way too much time on that film, more than it deserved. We thought we were going to maybe spend 5 minutes on it, barely. We're going to go to our feature film. This film is, I would probably say, all-time action classic. Would you put it in that category? Absolutely. Spawned a series. Spawned, to me, a genre of the buddy cop films. I think there were probably I will say there are buddy cop films prior to this, but I think this one stuck the landing so hard that it started everything. And we've already talked about the spoof movie of this already. So why not talk about the OG? And that is 1987's Lethal Weapon. Lethal Weapon came out March 6, 1987, had a budget of $15 million, had a weekend opening of $6.83 million, which was #1 its opening weekend, and also spent 3 weeks at the #1 spot, and had a finished box office of $120.2 million, had $65.2 million domestic, $55 million international. Say what you will about Mel Gibson, but this is his film. Mel Gibson as Martin Riggs is great. I love Mel Gibson in these films. I love Donald Glover in these films. The over-the-top porno sax music is is great in these. Lethal Weapon's awesome. Even when it's super corny and cheesy, it's still awesome because it's Lethal Weapon. Brian, you said I think you said I've seen this so many times. I don't think I need to watch it before the show. So, Brian, take it away, Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've seen it several times over the years, but I especially just rewatched it just like a couple months ago. So I didn't rewatch this one because I had to spend all my time watching this other crap. But yeah, Lethal Weapon, like you've already covered, buddy cop movies had existed to some extent before this, but this is kind of the one that, like you said, kind of created the genre as it is, and kind of the archetypes of, there's the one who's like getting ready to retire, and there's the wacky, the one who danger seeker partner, and the kind of mismatched buddy cop thing. And this totally, when it first came out, I didn't see it in theaters. I actually didn't latch on to Lethal Weapon until I think I saw sometime before 3 came out. I saw 1 and 2 like on video, and then I went and saw 3 and 4 in theaters. But yeah, I mean, I actually like the whole franchise. I know some people don't like some of the later ones, but I like them all. But this is definitely kind of still the first one, the classic. Mel Gibson this is kind of one of the consummate Mel Gibson roles. It kind of really is kind of who he is in a lot of his stuff. Richard Donner did a great job directing it. Yeah, I don't know really what else to say about it. It's been copied so many times that, just kind of the formula, but that you kind of forget how good this was, especially when it first came out. But yeah, I love this movie.
Yeah, I'm like you. I didn't see this when it came out because I was 2. Maybe I did, but I don't remember.
I wasn't old enough to see this in theaters yet without a guardian. Okay.
But I think I didn't really get introduced to Lethal Weapon probably until after 3 came out. And then I always remember 2 for the end, and then obviously the bathroom scene. And then 1, I remember everything. And honestly, I'm not going to lie, and I'll probably gonna get a lot of shit for this. 4 is my favorite. I love 4. I think 4 is hilarious and fun, and it was also what introduced me to Jet Li for the first time. So I really love 4's got a special place in my heart, but 1 to me is iconic, just kind of like Die Hard is iconic. And I'll say this right now, for all you people who think Die Hard is a Christmas movie, Lethal Weapon is way more of a Christmas movie than Die Hard is. I'm calling you that right now.
Well, written by Shane Black, so you know it's going to have Christmas in it.
Exactly.
But right there, first of all, that's the one thing you talk about. Shane Black, one of my favorite writers, and this was kind of his first. Actually, came out the same year as Predator, which he also had a hand in writing. But this one is kind of, you've seen Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, you've seen Nice Guys, you've seen all these other movies that he's done. This is kind of where he got that kind of dialogue down, and you can really tell his dialogue in the script is really amazing. I do want to take issue with your calling the score over the top. Michael Kamen's score with the saxophone. Dave Koz, the saxophone, Eric Clapton guitar. It's a great score. Don't criticize this.
No, I didn't say anything about the guitar. I said the saxophone is porno music, and I love it. I said I love the cheesiness of the.
But you called it over the top. I don't think it is. I thought it fit perfectly.
Over the top because sometimes it overtakes the whole scene. Is what I'm saying. Because there are times where he's just like walking and they're just blaring the sax. That doesn't mean I hate it. That's Lethal Weapon. If I hear it in other movies, I go, they're using the Lethal Weapon score. That's cheating.
Right.
Exactly. I've called that out in other movies. Like they're basically copying Lethal Weapon score and not talking about Loaded Weapon. But yeah, I mean, Gary Busey, I think he does a great job of being like this creepy, like, was it Special Forces? He's Special Forces, I believe.
Yeah.
He his introduction is him getting his hand or his arm burned, and he just has to stand there and take it. And I pointed this out to you, and I think everyone who's ever seen Lethal Weapon, they definitely remember the torture sequence with Mel Gibson, and then of course they remember the end. And I pointed this out to Brian. I was like, this is Gary Busey putting on a great performance here, because there's one point where, like I said, Mel Gibson's being tortured, and it's the scene where he's hanging. And he's got the shirt off. He's all like the water, and they're like putting sponges on him that are like hooked up to like an electrical like battery, so they're shocking him. And there's one point where Busey's character goes and grabs Mel Gibson to pull him closer, and as he's doing it, the tortured guy from Die Hard, I can't remember his name, but he's the guy from Die Hard.
Al Young. He's in Die Hard. He was also Genghis Khan in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Exactly. He goes and he puts the sponge on too early to shake, and Busey sells it like he got shocked as well. And it's so quick. It's not a part of the story. It's not a part of anything that he had to do. Busey just saw the opportunity, goes, oh, I should be like getting shocked right now. And you see him going, and it, like they don't even focus on it. But it was just how good of a job Busey did.
This is Busey when he still like tried before he went nuts. So.
Yes. I saw that scene. I was like, he didn't even have to do that. Like that would have been a mess up or something, but just him doing that off and to the side, because he's not the focus. The focus is you're watching Mel Gibson, and he's acting like he got zapped hard. And I'm just like, bravo, Busey. Like I said, it's a small little moment, but it's those little moments that you notice that you're like, that's great. Just like the handcuff scene with the jumper. Oh. I never noticed it. Riggs handcuffs himself to this jumper, and then he jumps off the building. But as the camera does an upshot of them jumping, but as soon as they jump, they don't jump together, and the handcuff breaks. It like clearly it's rubber, but you see it snap, and then they have to grab their hands and hold hands as they're falling. Which
I remember, I was telling him when I saw the movie. Every time I see the movie, I've noticed they held hands. Like, why would they hold hands? The one guy's not doing it willingly. But then I had never noticed the handcuff thing until he pointed it out to me. And I think that's, and I was telling him, I think it's because one of those things, like especially in older movies, they figured people wouldn't notice this kind of thing, because they weren't like super HD, big screens at home where people are going to watch this over and over again and notice the small mistakes. So it's just like the same way that the stunt doubles are always very obvious, and especially in older movies. Because they figure people aren't going to notice, and if they do, they can't tell. But I never noticed the handcuffs breaking until you mentioned it. Yeah,
because the very next scene you see them falling, you're like, that's not Mel Gibson. but yeah, you see it snap, and then you see them trying to search for each other, and then they grab hands like, aw.
It's lovers leap.
But once again, it's a great little moment, and that's the great thing about Lethal Weapon. It's great little moments in there, and that you still find new things to this day. This movie is 34 years old. 34 years
34 this year, yeah.
34 years old, and I'm still finding new things every time I watch it. That's what makes a movie great. And it's not like bad things. It's like I mean, yeah, it's a goof, but it's great. I mean, there's so many iconic moments in this movie, the franchise itself, but in this movie, and nonetheless, I mean, everyone remembers the brawl in the lawn. That would never happen.
I knew you wanted to talk about that. Okay.
Would never happen in real life. No police officers would be hunting down a cop killer and go, you want to go? Yeah, let's go. And then all the cops go, let him go. Let's get it on. Let's all watch.
Let him fight while standing around like we're in a high school cafeteria watching a fight.
It's like, no, like, are you kidding me? No, they'd be like, no, you don't get to do that. This is not the UFC. But in the 80s, it happened. That's the greatness of Lethal Weapon. That they literally had a Christmas brawl on Murtaugh's front lawn. And the weird thing about it too is at the very end of the movie, after like when they're like the very, very end, his lawn looks perfectly fine. It's like, dude, your lawn be trashed. But it's the greatness of Lethal Weapon. If you guys had never seen Lethal Weapon, first off, what are you doing with your life?
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, because if you're an action fan and you have never seen Lethal Weapon, there's something wrong with you. If you've seen like the older ones, you haven't seen the first one, what's wrong with you? Because you need to respect.
If you've seen any buddy cop movie ever, what's wrong?
And you've not seen Lethal Weapon. Yeah. What's wrong with you? Because I mean, you got to enjoy it's not a mullet, but the flow of Mel Gibson's hair in this.
It's a big late 80s hair. Yeah.
It's basically a blown out mullet, but it's great. But nonetheless, Lethal Weapon, it's an all-time classic, and that's why it's our feature film. When we both saw this, we're definitely talking about Lethal Weapon, right? We're like, duh. Yeah. So I don't believe it's on any streaming.
It's not. I mean, I'm sure it's going to make its way to HBO Max eventually because it's the Warner Brothers, but I think it's because right now it's on Showtime, so I'm sure there's some contractual things going on right now. But yeah, right now it's not available free anywhere.
Yeah, but I mean,
Showtime.
Nonetheless, I mean, you can find it on Amazon. It's cheap. You can literally go to any probably DVD store like a Best Buy or what have you. You get all 4 on DVD for $10.
Yeah.
Which,
oh yeah.
I was telling Brian after this ended, I was like, I could binge watch the other 3 right now, but we got to watch more movies. For the show. I was like, I wanted to watch more Lethal Weapon, but I couldn't. Now I can. Yeah. But that is our feature film. We're gonna move on to Brian's pick. Brian's pick is a doozy, and I mean that in a good way this time. Normally I say that it's like I'm about to show on your film because it's a band. But this one, is a comic book film, technically. The first film is one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. And Brian picked the sequel because, in blasphemy terms, he likes the sequel more than the original.
We'll talk about that.
I like the sequel. It's not better than the first, but that is Brian's pick. 300: Rise of an Empire came out in 2014 of March 7th. Had a budget of 110 million. Had a weekend opening of 45 million. Also, #1 opening weekend, but it was his only weekend at #1. Had a finished box office of 337.58 million. Had 106.58 million domestic and 231 million international. Now, Rise of the Empire, I personally, I don't think Rise of the Empire is actually a comic book. I think only the original 300.
It actually was based. It took a few more liberties with the story, but it actually is based on a follow-up graphic novel that was titled Xerxes.
Okay,
by Frank Miller. Yeah.
So it is an actual comic book.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first 300 movie. I mean, I literally have a poster of the first 300 movie right there. I love the first 300 film. I have watched that movie more times than I can count. When they announced a sequel, I was ecstatic. I was so excited to see it, and it's still good. I'm not bashing it. I'm just saying it's not as good as the first one for me, but it did two things incredibly well. One, it did the first thing, and I think Brian and I actually did actual work on this to look. It's the first movie that is a prequel, sidequel, and sequel all in one, because it shows events prior to 300, events that are going on at the same time as 300, and then an actual sequel to 300. I don't think we've ever had a movie that actually has done that. And they casted Ava Green, who I adore. Brian, this is your pick. I'm going to shut up now. 300: Rise of Empire, go.
Yeah, so I mean, they announced they're going to make a sequel to this, and you're like, well, the 300 are dead, so how do they make a sequel to 300? But I thought what they did was brilliant. Now, like I said, it's partially based on Xerxes. So Frank Miller actually did the work. But I thought the way they did it was brilliant because, like you said, it takes place. It has stuff beforehand. It kind of tells more of the history of like Xerxes. It has things that took place after 300. But then so much of it is taking place alongside the events of 300, and there are scenes that kind of interweave themselves, where you kind of see where they cross over in some points. You see characters like, oh yeah, I know exactly where in the timeline this is happening, and I thought that part of it was done brilliantly. This one, I think, it didn't quite go for the same look as 300, and I think that might have hurt it a little bit because it kind of has the same aesthetic to it, but not quite such that sepia out kind of comic book look to it. It was more live action and kind of went with more of a bluer tone. And that's one of the other things I thought they did really well with this, is that they knew they can't just make it, okay, here's another group of soldiers fighting against Xerxes' army and all that kind of stuff. So they took the Athenians and made them that they are more of like the naval force to like the 300's army. And I thought that was brilliant because you get a very different aesthetic to the action scenes. You get a different setting. You get different kind of warfare.
They wear blue and red.
Yeah, but I mean, I thought it looked great. I thought it was definitely just as bloody as the first one. This is a movie now. A lot of people don't get into the 3D thing. And then in Alice in Wonderland, I criticized it, but this movie in theaters in IMAX 3D was just awesome looking. And even watching it at home, I have a 3D projector screen here, and it just looks awesome to watch. So I mean, the look of the movie is great. The acting I thought was very good. The main star, Themistocles, is a guy named Sullivan Stapleton. He's no Gerard Butler, but I thought he did pretty good. Excuse me. Ava Green, I think she's actually a really good actress. Not quite as into her as Sean is, but I mean, I thought she played this part great. It was kind of this woman who she obviously has this dark history. She is a brilliant fighter. She's definitely kick-ass. She definitely has sexuality to her, and she uses that, especially in like the greatest hate fucking scene on film in history. It's a very odd scene, but somehow it works in this movie. It's like if you describe what happened and how it led to this, you'd be like, well, that makes no sense. That's stupid, but it kind of works.
I think it's second all time in hate fucking. First definitely goes to this one scene in True Blood. If anyone who's seen True Blood, you know the scene I'm talking about. This is definitely a good second.
Okay. Well, I did say film history, so there you go. That can have the TV title. Yeah, I mean, I just think, and it stayed true to the first movie in terms of like, you know, the score and all that kind of things. It kind of definitely kept you totally believe it's in the same universe. So I really enjoyed it. What did you think?
I mean, like I said, I do love this movie as well. I don't love it as much as the first one. And the reason why I think I don't love this one as much as the first one is that I don't think I got as invested with the Athenians as much as I did with the 300. Because with the 300, you had Gerard Butler, you had Fassbender, you had, obviously I don't have the 300 cast in front of me, but you had his second lieutenant and his son. You had David Wyndham's character. Like I was just there. You could go at least six more deep on the 300 Spartans that I was invested into all those characters. So when they died or were at that final stand, I felt that a little bit more. And obviously their motivations in this. Now, like they said, nonetheless, in 300 or 300 Rise of an Empire, I'm not going to try to say the main character. Yeah, you know,
Themistocles.
I think he does a great job. I'm invested in his character. I was invested in his number 2. Was it Callan Mulvey's
Callan Mulvey. Yeah.
I thought he did a great job. But
and
like
his son, Jack O'Connell, who I've always said to this day looks like Anton Yelchin on steroids. Just saying.
I can agree with that. But it's like outside of like those two, I just couldn't get invested with the rest because they didn't give enough time to me, I felt, to develop those characters, whereas 300 did a better job with that. Ava Green, though, I think she did a fantastic job in this. And you guys can at me all you want. Ava Green's character in this is better than any Game of Thrones character. This character would wipe the floor with any of the Game of Thrones characters. If she was running Westeros, shit get done right away. It wouldn't take 8 seasons. It'd take 1 season, and she would take down the dragons. Like
I mean,
that.
She's badass, but I love the way they explained her backstory. You're like, I totally get it. I get why she's the way she is.
Her motivation, you get her drive. You get why she does the way she does certain things. You get how she knows when to lead and when to take a step back, but she's actually still running everything. Like you actually kind of realize that it's not Xerxes really that's running the show. It's her. She's kind of just letting Xerxes Xerxes is Xerxes, but it's like really it's like she could probably take Xerxes if she wanted to. But I mean, Ava Green did a great job in this. Like I said, the naval battle stuff was great. And they somehow were able to take the naval battle and still make it 300 because you're hopping the boats and you have like literally a horse jumping boats. Yeah. Like you still made it look great. Like I said, the only thing like I said that just takes away it from me was just I couldn't get into the Athenians were more just red shirts or stormtroopers. You know, like outside of the two, that's what they were to me. But the ones that they actually did pay attention to, I thought they did a great job. Lena Headey, she's got a great, or is it Headley or Headey? She's got a great little moment. She's become more powerful as the queen since the first film, or I guess as congruently as the first film's going. She's got a great moment at the end. She has her like badass scene outside of like the one scene she had in 300. I love these two films. I do. So when Brian picked this, I was one of those things where it was like, I was probably going to take it. And you were like, I really, really like this one better than the first one. I'm like, all right, then Brian, you take it.
Well, let me address that first of all. Now, when I first saw this, now I really like 300. I love 300. When I first saw this one, I came out of this saying, you know what? I think I like this one as much as, if not maybe a little bit more than the first one. Now rewatching it now, I'll back off on that. I still think, because I rewatched actually 300 before I rewatched this one, because you got to watch them both.
Yeah, you have to. It's so, like you have to watch them back to back.
Especially because of the way they're so intertwined. I wanted to refresh myself on 300 before I watched this. Now I do not think this one is better than the first one. I don't even know if I'd say it's quite as good, but it's right there. And I think the reason I was so effusive about it when I first saw it was probably that theatrical experience, because the first one wasn't in IMAX. The first one wasn't in 3D. So it's just kind of a cooler experience on the big screen. But I mean, I still love this movie, and it's really, I think, probably almost as good as the first one.
I remember 300 was the very first Blu-ray I bought. It was 300, and then it was the Avengers, like 8-1, and boom, like first Blu-ray. And it's just like, oh, you can get. And I remember too, because the first Blu-ray was not good. It was grainy as shit. They had to send out like 5 firmware updates on the 300 Blu-ray disc to make it actually look Blu-ray, because the green screen didn't work. So it was just like the DVD version still looked better than the Blu-ray. But nonetheless, I bought it. And I was like, yes, I got it on Blu-ray. But it didn't look good. But yeah, 300 Rise of Empire. It's I don't know.
Well, it's if your cable company carries FX, it's on FX now. But otherwise, you have to rent it somewhere.
Yeah. Which once again, if you're gonna watch it, you watch 300 first. That's a requirement. That's not a suggestion. That's a requirement. So 300 Rise of the Empire was Brian's pick. Going to my pick. What's that?
Rise of an Empire, not the Empire.
I'm sorry, I went Star Wars, my bad. Going to my pick, I picked a film that I feel like not enough people know about or have probably heard about. And it is a army film or a war movie. I wouldn't count it a war movie. What would you call it? An army? Or
it's war. It's not.
I mean, it's not like a war. It's
a military film.
Yeah, it's a military film because it's like not really a war, but it is military. And that is the 2003 Bruce Willis film, Tears of the Sun.
Now it's the.
Now it's the. Tears of the Sun came out March 7th, 2003, had a budget of $75 million, had a weekend opening of $17 million. Number 2 behind Bringing Down the House in its first week, and finished with a box office of $86.46 million, had a domestic of $43.7 million and $86.46 million international. Now with this movie, like obviously when people think of war movies of the 2000s, you've got Black Hawk Down, you've got obviously we talked about 13 Hours of Benghazi, that was a few years back. You've got wow, everyone thinking about it's the 90s. I was like Thin Red Line, but I was like that's 99. But I mean, it was one of those movies, like it kind of just came out, and it was kind of in between like Bruce Willis's like, is he really trying or is he not really trying kind of performances. This one I felt like he really tried. It cast wise, I mean, it's let's face it, it's a Bruce Willis film. Now by today's standards, it's definitely got a more noticeable cast now than it did back in 2003. You've got Monica Bellucci, which most people probably knew her from the Matrix sequels, probably more than other things at the time. You got Cole Hauser, which I only really knew Cole Hauser from Too Fast, Too Furious, which is easily the worst Fast and the Furious film, but he was the villain in that. Eamon Walker, most people know him from Oz, but nowadays people know him from Chicago Fire because he's the fire chief on there. So anyone who watches the Chicago shows, he's one of the focal characters of this as well. It was Nick Chinlund, which I think Brian halfway through said, this is the first movie I've ever seen this guy not play a bad guy.
Yeah, this is one of those guys who you recognize the face. He's just always a bad guy in every movie he's in, except this one is the one, like, oh, he's a good guy here.
Yeah, you got Tom Skerritt, who basically plays the same role pretty much in every movie. He always just plays like the one like military guy who's like always in charge and who just barks out orders. And then I'm going to mention this guy because he's one of my favorite actors that doesn't get enough credit. Peter Mensah. Or Mensah. Fantastic actor. For anyone who watched Spartacus, Blood and Sand, which anyone who is fans of Spartacus, me just mentioning it, has probably had you all go, yes! He played Doctori or Onomaus.
He was also in 300 Rise of an Empire.
He was he was in 300.
No, he was in this too.
Oh, was he? Yeah, because of the prequel part.
Because they show, and he's actually the one who finds Artemisia, remember, and brings Xerxes. But I describe him as the guy that got We Are Sparta.
He's the one who got Sparta kicked. But he's also in True Blood. He's a fantastic actor. Does he have a big role in this? No, he's basically
head bad guy.
No, he's second head bad guy. Because there's
that's right.
He's second head bad guy. But this film, basically the main plot, you have they're not or are they mercenaries? What would you call Bruce Willis's group? Special ops.
Special ops, yeah, Navy SEALs.
Special ops team, and they basically are called to go into this Nigerian jungle, because there's like a civil, like kind of like a refugee war going on, and they're basically
genocide, basically. Yeah.
Exactly. And they're basically told to go into this camp and take this American doctor and like these priests and
Missionaries,
the American ones, and take them and take them to safety. But the doctors won't leave the rest of the people in the camp behind. So Bruce Willis now has to take her and 75 other Nigerians through the jungle, trying to avoid these, like, basically these refugee attackers, like, you know, genocide attackers, whatever the wording you want to use, with basically the work of 7 men. So basically it's his 7 guys. Well, he's the 7th, but him and his 6 other guys trying to protect 75 people through the jungle in a terrain that they're not equipped to basically handle. And that's basically what this film's plot is. I think, like I said, Bruce Willis, around this time and even up till now, he had gotten to that point where he's just kind of half-assing it through most of the films. I feel like with this one, Bruce Willis really actually puts his all into it. There are some big scenes in this film that I feel like Bruce Willis really kind of puts an actual effort into it. Eamon Walker, I think, does a great. I honestly think pretty much for the most part the entire Special Ops crew does a great job. Monica Bellucci does a great job in this. There is one scene. I told Brian, I was like, I have not seen this movie since I saw it in theaters in 2003, but there is one scene that happens in this film that has never left my mind. And Brian was like, "What is it?" And I explained it to him. He was like, "What?" And I go, you'll see it when you get there. You'll notice it. And it literally is the turning point of the film for the special ops guys. Because when they see this, that's when they become, this is more than a mission. This is we have to do this kind of thing. It's a very powerful scene. It's brutal, but it's also incredibly well done. If you see the scene, you'll know what I'm talking about. I think the action is incredibly well done, especially the very first action sequence when they invade the one camp that the militia people are already in. I think anyone who's ever played a stealth army game where you have to invade a camp without making noise so they don't sound the alarms, you're going to love this scene. And then a great third act finale battle. Does a really good job. I think it's one of those criminally underrated war films or military films by a great supporting cast of a bunch of no-namers led by Bruce Willis. Brian, what are your thoughts on Tears of the Sun? Because we actually didn't talk about this, so I have no idea what your thoughts were about this.
Tears of the Sun is a hard one to classify because I wouldn't call it an action film, but it's definitely has action sequences to it. But it's not, you don't go into it thinking like it's an action film, just shoot 'em up kind of thing. But it's got a little bit more of a drama with action in it.
There's really only 2 action scenes for the most
There's really, a couple just brief here and there. You're right about Bruce Willis. I think this is kind of on the tail end of his, I Still Care years, because he got to the point where he's kind of past, well, we thought for the diehards and stuff, because it's before the Free Your Die Hard came out. So it's kind of during that long period between those, but it wasn't quite to his, sleepwalking through his roles straight to video days. Which is odd because actually when I look at the plot of this movie and even a lot of the supporting cast of this movie, it feels like exactly the kind of movie that he would make now. This is a story that would be like a straight to video movie.
Like,
although
I'll take like 3 weekends off, we'll shoot this, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, it seems it's the kind of story you see kind of thrown together on those movies. But this one obviously has, but this one's got like a name director. It's got Antoine Fuqua. It's got a solid cast, and Bruce Willis, he's still kind of largely emotionless like Bruce Willis is, but he still seemed like he was still, carrying a little bit in this role. I don't think I enjoyed it quite as much as Sean. I mean, I did like the movie. It just didn't, I didn't love it, but I enjoyed it. I think my only real problem with the movie is that all these guys, these hardened special forces guys are, they're all like, no, this is what we got to do. This is our mission. This is all we care about. We don't care about these people. And then, throughout the movie, like all of them are having this moment like, oh, no, I care now. It's not just about the mission. It's about the people. It's like, have they never encountered the same situation before in any of their previous missions? It's like, so why is this one in particular? Suddenly, all of their emotions come out. Suddenly, they care, and suddenly, it's not all about the orders. That I was a little bit hard to swallow.
I'm going to defend that because normally they just do the mission the right way, and they get in and they get the fuck out. Bruce Willis did not follow the mission. Bruce Willis put them in a situation that they were not used to doing, which was having to take care of a group of people. And then when they get to that village and they see the thing that happens, they see the brutality of what these people are doing. And because at that point they had already spent time with these people, it weighed more heavily on them that they weren't. Because you remember what they were gonna do at the like 20 or 30 minute mark.
See, I feel like they've kind of probably seen this kind of thing before. And Bruce Willis, especially his character, why suddenly this time does he decide, I care? It's a little. I mean, it's not really criticism of the movie. It's just kind of one of the things going like, okay, whatever, we'll just overlook that.
I think he cared because it was Monica Bellucci and she was giving him the eyes, and he's like, okay.
Okay.
Come on, by the end of the movie, yeah.
I don't think that was the motivation, but okay.
I think that was motivation. Secretly motivation. It's Monica Bellucci, come on.
Yeah. Well, maybe on the way home he was photo-whacking vigorously. That's what we call a callback, ladies and gentlemen.
We're going to use that a lot. I could tell.
But yeah, I mean, it's a solid cast. It's a well-directed movie. It's not the kind of thing, I haven't seen it since it first came out in theaters when I watched it, and it's the kind of thing I probably will watch again for many, many years. But it's a decent movie and worth watching.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not saying it's one of the best war films or military films by a long shot, but it was one of those things when we were going through the list, and you had taken 300 Rise of an Empire. I was like, oh, I remember really, really liking Tears of the Sun. I'm going to take that. And then rewatching it, I was like, I'm glad I took this because I don't think enough people know Tears of the Sun is.
Actually, Sean wanted to pick Alice in Wonderland, but I said, no, that's the stinker, so you got to pick something else.
No, you wanted to, I believe, no, you didn't want to pick something else. We vigorously tried to find another stinker because we both did not want to watch Alice in Wonderland. We looked through that list 5 times.
Because we both knew.
5 times.
We both knew it wouldn't be a fun stinker. It was going to be just a boring one. Anyway.
I hate that we went back to Alice in Wonderland. But yeah, we tried so hard not to have to watch that. But Tears of the Sun, it is not currently on any streaming services, which is like a lot of the movies we pick. But you can rent it on Amazon for like $2-3. Like I say, if you like Bruce Willis, if you like these military kind of films where you have a like special ops guys who get dropped in a very uncompromising situation and have to kind of power through it. I mean, you will not regret it. I think it's got a strong supporting cast of a bunch of names that a lot of people don't know. And they do a really good job of really kind of making you care for the most part about the rest of the group outside of Bruce Willis. But yeah, definitely check that out if you guys have time. Going to our final film. It's not a stinker. I know this. You guys are going to think we're just bashing this film. It kind of is. It's kind of not at the same time. But it is our revisited. But when we were both discussing this, I was like, do we want to do this one? And Brian's like, I don't like this movie. And I was like, I can't remember if I liked it or not. Should we revisit it and give it a second chance? And that sigh was what I got. And he's like, fine. And
Crosswire.
Yes, and thus we picked it. Our final film today is our revisited, which is the graphic comic book, the 2009 film Watchmen. Watchmen came out March 6, 2009, had a budget of $131 million, had a weekend opening of $55.2 million, was number one its opening weekend, and it was its only weekend at number one. Had a finished box office of $185.38 million, $107.5 million domestic, and $77.87 million international. Now, Watchmen, the TV series is great. TV series, I don't think it's the best thing ever, like a lot of people said it was, but the TV series was really, really well done. That has nothing to do with this film. Watchmen, another Zack Snyder film. I say that loosely. It's actually, you know what, Brian? Take it away. Go ahead, Brian. You said you had a lot to talk about on this. So.
Well, it's one of those films that I know is some people just love this movie. I think those are more people that really love the source material, which I honestly feel like the source material is one of the weakest things about it. Because I mean, well, first of all, the look of the movie, it's got Zack Snyder's kind of style to it, and the filming. I think the filming of it, the style of it, I didn't really have too much of a problem with that. But like the things that popped out to me, the old age makeup on people, or just even the makeup to try and make people look like Richard Nixon's other people, horrible. Some of the worst I've ever seen. It's like I don't know why they thought this is good. I also don't know why you cast someone like Carla Gugino just to put her in old age makeup for the entire movie, except for like 2 flashback scenes.
Or someone for like Jeffrey Dean Morgan for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. But I mean, there's that. I think that the costumes look like bad Comic-Con get-ups. They look. I spent my time more laughing at them than thinking they were like intimidating superheroes or anything like that. So I mean, but at the end, that's something that goes back to the source material, which the story I thought was kind of the weakest part of it. I think that the performances were kind of hit and miss. I think that most of the actors, I think, did a good job of what they had. I think Jackie Earle Haley is the standout in this movie. He is as Rorschach. I think his scenes are the ones that actually had me interested in the movie, especially the big prison fight scene. I think is probably maybe the best scene of the movie. But beyond him, I mean, you had like Matthew Good, who was just the most bland person you've ever dealt with. You have I'm trying to even think who else was in Patrick Wilson. I like Patrick Wilson is a good actor. Usually, again, it's a supporting role. In here, again, comes out as just really bland. Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Carla Gugino, 2 of my favorite people in the cast, are barely in it because they're mostly in like flashback scenes or kind of little scenes here and there. And so, I mean, you wasted your best cast members. Your story is again, I'm sure we're going to talk about this, was largely boring. I mean,
I think Alan Ackerman.
Oh, yeah, Malin Ackerman. She's fine, I guess, but it's I don't know. And then, well, I'll get into some other things, but give me your thoughts on it.
I mean, I'm inclined to agree with Brian on most of this. Like I said, Carla Gugino, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan, 2 of my favorite people as well. I love them and everything they're in. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan, when he actually gets stuff to do in this, which is in flashbacks, he's great. He's great. I wish the movie was more about his character, which it's a horrible character, but I actually wish there was more because that was the most intriguing I was about this entire film when they were talking about the comedian in this film. I agree, Jackie Earle Haley. That's what I think most people. There's 2 things that people remember about this movie. One is the thing we're going to talk about. And which if you guys haven't figured it out yet, then you guys haven't watched the Watchmen. And then the second is Rorschach from Jackie Earle Haley. His character is fantastic. I think his character deserves a different film than the film it's in because his whole scene, his whole storyline is incredibly intriguing and important in a dull ass movie because by the time his stuff really starts getting into the mix, I'm so put to sleep by the first hour of this film because you got the intriguing opening number with the comedian's death, which it's not a spoiler, it's in the trailers. I'm getting thrown out the window, and then after that, it's a snog of like 50 minutes of just stuff. And I honestly, first time I watched it, I dozed off the first 30 minutes in. And I had to watch it another day because it's just so boring. And I'm sorry, comic book movies are not supposed to be dull and boring. They're just not.
On top of the fact that it's still boring, is the fact that this movie is what 2 hours and 40-some minutes, 45 minutes. Long. So yeah. It's probably a good hour long. It needs to be. Like when I was talking to Sean about it, he's talking about in the middle hours. Like you shouldn't have to say the middle hour.
Yeah,
because that means it's way too long. Now there can be longer movies, like Infinity War, a comic book movie. It's a big epic movie, and it deserved all 3 hours. But this movie really, it had a hard time even filling half of that time.
It's just dead.
It's just slow and boring, and it's another one of those movies where I'm watching it and I feel like oh my gosh, I guess I survived it. Like oh wait, no, there's still an hour and a half left. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I basically was telling Brian, I was like, look, outside of Jeffrey Dean Morgan's death scene, it doesn't get interesting until Rorschach gets arrested, and it has to go into the jail, and then once that happens. It's great until he escapes jail. And then it's boring again. When literally the last, 20 minutes is basically Matrix Revolutions inside the architect room, where there was like, let's stand around and monologue the whole time. But I'm not a comic book villain. I already did everything. But let's keep monologuing anyway. And it's just like, ugh. And I mean, let's. And then you have the slow motion shots that aren't necessary. You have the ridiculously over the top sex scene in the middle with Hallelujah playing, and the finishing moment of it is what I'll say is so over the top, laugh out loud bad. But yeah, it's like I said, Patrick Wilson. I love Patrick Wilson. I think he's a fantastic actor. He is dull as shit in this film. Malin Ackerman, she's not the greatest actor out there. She's doing the best. She's putting on her best performance of her life.
I actually like her best when she does comedies.
She's a great comedian. She's putting on the best performance of her life in this, but it's dull as shit because everyone around her is dull as shit. Matthew Good, I fall asleep every time he talks because he brings nothing to the table. Like I said, Jackie Earle Haley is great, but even after a while, his voice like this with Batman voice.
Yeah, he was taking Batman to the nth degree. Yeah,
is basically kind of just after a while. When he's not in jail, his character wasn't really that interesting because he was basically being like a 1930s gumshoe detective with the mask and just beats crap out of people, which, like I said, in another film that wasn't connected to Watchmen, that would have been a fantastic character to do a series on. But you put him in the Watchmen verse where it's like everyone in this world is just miserable, and like, you know what, maybe Matthew Good's idea of destroying 15 million wasn't a bad idea, because apparently everyone in this world is just miserable and they all hate each other, and it's dreary and shit. But then you have, and I know you're
character we haven't discussed yet.
Yes, then you have the character that we are gonna just
okay, I'm gonna say let's get this out of the way first. The glowing blue junk. Okay.
Blue Dong.
So this movie obviously is an R-rated comic book movie, and of course, so in this movie, when Dr. Manhattan is his name, anytime he's on screen, he has to be completely naked. Which, okay, fine, maybe he doesn't have to wear clothes, but there's really no reason to actually show his glowing blue dong, except to be like, ooh, look, we're an R-rated movie. Look, we can put it. There's no reason for it. It's not even like, just briefly in one scene. It's several scenes, just like,
just
okay,
him
there it is.
Around with it just
and it really serves no purpose except to be like, ooh, look at us, we're an edgy R-rated comic book movie.
And before you guys go, well, Sean, Brian, what's that to say about boobs in movies? You know what? Boobs is one thing. We don't see women's just all over the entire time.
But honestly, even in this movie, like, you see boobs like during a sex scene, things like that. If I saw something of his during the sex scene, whatever. But I wouldn't just walking around like talking about scientific stuff with her boobs hanging out. I would think that was unnecessary too.
But even at the end where he grabs Sally, I think is her real name in the movie. Yes, Laurel. Malin Ackerman's character. He takes her up to freaking Mars, and they're having this emotional moment about deciding where to save the world or not. He's free flowing the entire effing time. It's just like, dude. And then there are certain times where he just wears a thong, and it's like, why not wear that the entire time? Like, come on. Like, it's one of those things, like you said.
We're not just being prudes. It's distracting, and it's just one of those things clearly is just doing to try to be edgy.
And it's not like we want to look at it, but damn, it's just right there. And in any spoof film, when he gets super, super big at the end to like break into was it Asmodeus's thing, he would have killed him with his dick. He would have bam, like, and you know it. When he got all big, I'm like, I know he's not wearing pants. All he could do was just go thwomp and just destroy the entire building they're in. And if it was a spoof movie, they would have done that shit. And you know what? I probably would have laughed and enjoyed it.
It'd be a better movie than this.
It would be a better movie than this. Hell yeah. It's just so unnecessary. And even I was like getting ready to watch it. I'm like, we're gonna have to watch a lot of blue penis.
This movie is frustrating because it's I had heard so much about it, about the Watchmen graphic novel, and I had never read it. And I thought about reading it before I saw the movie, but I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go into the movie before I see it, or before I read it. And so I did, and I watched this thing kind of going, what's what's the big deal? And some people will say that maybe it's not as good as the source material, but I'm like, I don't care enough about the story to look into the source material, to be honest with you. And what's frustrating about the movie, though, is that there are flashes of a good movie in here. There are scenes. There's the jailbreak. Actually, most of Rorschach's scenes, honestly. There's the comedian when he's actually doing some things, those are good. But so many other characters and so many other plot lines, I just don't care about at all.
Like I said, we love Patrick Wilson. I don't give a rat's ass about Owlman.
Didn't care at all about Owlman. Yeah.
Is it Owlman?
Night Owl 2, actually, because there was a previous one.
Yeah. I don't give a shit about Night Owl. I don't. And it's nothing against Patrick Wilson. It's just his character is so bland and dull. And I mean, honestly, Malin Ackerman's Laurel, she actually has a decent character arc when it's connected with the comedian and stuff. I was intrigued with that, but then you have the whole, we have to have a love triangle, which is not really even a freaking love triangle between Night Owl and Blue Manhattan. And I'm sorry, Blue Manhattan's story is ungodly boring. The HBO series does a fantastic job of explaining Blue Manhattan.
Let me ask you this, because other viewers might be in the same situation as I am. I've seen the Watchmen movie, didn't like it, so never watched the series. Would I still enjoy the series if I watched it?
You will enjoy the series because outside of Dr. Manhattan, there's nothing about Watchmen that has anything to do with the series except for Dr. Manhattan. Dr. Manhattan it's an entirely different character. I mean, he's still blue and incredibly powerful, but it's more about the police officers and not about Watchmen.
Okay.
It's like there is no comedian, there is no Silk Spectre, there is no Night Owl, there is none of them. Watchmen was incredibly well done. Was it Regina King is fantastic in it, and Yaya, blanking on the rest of it. Yaya, you know what I'm talking about. He's Dr. Manhattan, and he's fantastic in it. And then what's his name? Gosh dang it, I'm blanking on his name. Alfred in BVS. Villain in Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Oh, Jeremy Irons.
Yeah, he's Asmodeus in the movie,
okay.
or in the show. It's great, and it basically makes this film look even worse by comparison because of how well Watchmen is done. The series, and like I agree with Brian. There is some good shit in this movie. There are some very good scenes, and there's great potential in this, but it's just such a slog to get through, and it's just boring to get through. And when you do get slightly excited about something you're about to see on screen, you're like, oh, cool, and then it goes away. Like literally, they stopped the movie in the middle for a 20-minute origin story about Dr. Manhattan, and it's even more boring than you think it is. And at that point, I'm just like, why? And I get why, because that's probably how it flowed in the comic. And Zack Snyder was trying to be truthful with the comic, but that's why he got the director's cut and the ultimate cut, which had like another 40 minutes of the film with animated stuff. And I'll admit, I actually was like, I'm gonna watch the full cut of this, and I ended up wasn't be able to, and I had to watch the theatrical cut. And all I kept thinking of was, thank God I didn't watch the whole cut, because I don't know if I could have gone 40 more minutes with this movie. It looks great in parts, and then there were other parts where Zack Snyder takes too much liberty of it just being too dark. And it, like I said, that's the one thing that we can at least all agree on with Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder is fantastic at making stuff look great, just like Michael Bay's fantastic at making stuff blow up. Director wise, they're not that good. And we'll find out even more when Justice League comes out this month. I'm not holding high hopes for it. I would love to be proven wrong. And yes, I know Zack Snyder did 300, and we're talking about how much we love 300. He didn't do the second one, did he?
No, it was the director who had only done some drama before. That was very strange. Noah something or other.
Well, I mean, I get it. We're shitting on Zack Snyder, and then we were literally praising 300 like 20 minutes earlier.
Well, Zack Snyder's just one of those that peaked early. He did Dawn of the Dead, which was great.
Yeah.
He did 300, which is great, and then
Sucker Punch, which was not great.
No.
And then followed up Sucker Punch with, I think, Watchmen, and then went to Superman, or Man of Steel, and then BVS, and it's just like, oh. God.
I like Man of Steel. I'm a Man of Steel defender.
No. I like Man of Steel. I like Man of Steel. But BVS is dog crap, and Justice League is just, well, that's mostly Joss Whedon. We'll see what Justice League is like later.
I got a whole thing about that.
Yeah, exactly. We'll trust me. You and I will do a review together for Justice League.
Okay.
But yeah, Watchmen. Like again, we know there's a huge cult following of this. We know that there's probably a lot of people who are upset by what we're saying here. But literally, when I think of Watchmen, it's the same. It's the same thing when people think of The Shape of Water. Oh, you mean the girl who fucks a fish movie? Watchmen is the Blue Dong movie. Not only did we get the Blue Dong, but we got like 8 Blue Dongs in one scene, which is like, come the fuck on, seriously. And that is
That's
Watchmen.
the stuff nightmares are made of, right there.
Exactly. That's Watchmen in a nutshell. It's just like nutshell. Anyway, Watchmen, if you guys want to watch it, it's only the theatrical cut. If you guys want the director's cut or the unlimited or ultimate cut, you have to rent it or something. It's not going to be on streaming services. Watchmen, the theatrical cut is on HBO Max along with the TV series. Go watch the TV series instead. Thus ends the episode this week. We hope you guys enjoyed this this show. If you guys did, go ahead and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on the Movie Crusaders. And of course, don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next, we actually have 4 movies coming out this week. You're probably seeing reviews pop up today for them later in the day. We've got Chaos Walking, which I'm incredibly intrigued by, but I've had not heard great things, but I'm going to keep an open mind to it. Raya and the Last Dragon, I'm hearing great things. Brian and I were super excited about it. It was on our most anticipated. The first trailer, though, did not give me high hopes, but maybe...
Yeah, as soon as Awkwafina opened her mouth, I'm like, oh, no. Anyway.
Yes, but hopefully we're proven wrong. Coming to America 2, another one of Brian's most anticipated. I'm definitely going to have to rewatch the first one again before I watch the second one. And then also one of Brian's most anticipated. This is Brian weekend right here. Brian should just review all these. Boss Level, which was one of Brian's most anticipated films of the year because he already saw it. That comes out on Hulu. So be on the lookout for those reviews. I'll have them out hopefully Friday, or if not, definitely through the weekend. And then next week's episode for the Weekend Crusaders, we've got 5 more movies. Yeah, we got a very unique list here again. We've got a I'm coughing again. I almost made it through this whole episode without coughing. We've got a beloved 90s comedy that I personally was not a fan of, so maybe it will change my mind. We've got a I'm trying to describe how to describe this other one, the second one. How would you describe the second one?
It's based on classic literature. It's a drama story with a little bit of action to it.
With a dual role, and that's all we'll say. We got another comedy that is very widely loved by lots of people. I also don't think it's the greatest thing out there. Hopefully, maybe I'm proven wrong. And then we've got a stinker of, in my opinion, great proportions. It's got everything that's very 2000s in it. So we will see, and no, it's not Torque again.
And I think neither of us has actually seen this one.
No, I
have seen it.
I saw it at a friend's house, but I was hanging out with friends and it was on TV. So I saw it. I
haven't seen it at all. So for all I know, I'm going to like the stinker. But
and then we've got a 80s comedy with a very beloved actor that we're both fans of that we're going to revisit as well. I know that none of those you're going to be able to pick out. So good luck trying to figure out those choices. But until next time, I'm Sean Wasserkrug. That's Brian Michaels. Until next time, in case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.